2, and we're live. You know, guys, I am so excited. First of all, I've got to introduce myself. Hi, my name is Jay Angel, and welcome to the Bassin Magazine podcast. Bassin Magazine, the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. With me tonight, I have Brad of Bassin Magazine, bassinonline.com. I also have Juan Acosta from California. He's going to be representing Apex. He is an Apex Pro. And I have Colby Pearson from Oregon, also representing Apex as an Apex Pro. You know, welcome, guys. Welcome. It's so good to talk to some guys from the West Coast. Man, I want to hear all about Bassin from the West Coast. But first of all, why don't one of you tell me? I'll pick on Juan since he's the one on top. Tell me, what is Apex and what sets Apex apart from other bass tournament trails?
Well, Apex is it's a tournament circuit that started out here on the West Coast. It was kind of put together by a lot of the veteran guys that wanted to do something for the West Coast to have like a really big kind of type, kind of like the elites type deal, but out here in the West Coast, which we don't have, right?
Right.
And it's in the second year now. We fished all last season and it went great. I mean, it's a smaller fields, the format's different, and then it's just the way they set it up is we fish smaller bodies of water out here, which could be some of the best bodies of water, you know, out in the West Coast. And then as far as the format, there's you could qualify two ways. You could qualify through number of keepers, and then you could also qualify through your biggest 5. And once you make the top 10, the weight's zeroed, and then you start fresh. The top 10 start from a clean slate, and then whoever brings in the heaviest weight wins the tournament.
So is it like a traditional where you bring in 5 and have them weighed?
You still keep your biggest 5 throughout the tournament, but you're also keeping count of every keeper you catch, which in this case, I believe is 14 inches. And then we also have an app where people could track. We log in every fish on the app. So people like fans could go into the app and see who's catching what and how many keepers they got and what weight. And that's like the Tourney X app.
Oh, okay. Tourney X. I'm familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
That was made very popular by kayak fishermen.
Correct. Yeah, that's where they got
Brad's
it.
a big kayak fisherman.
Mm-hmm. And then,
so Colby, what is this an invite only tournament?
Yeah, you have to qualify to be a part of Apex. The initial year I qualified via points, and then I get a couple years to kind of prove my existence in the field. But you can qualify through the Wild West Bass Trail Pro-Ams, which also tour up and down the West Coast, anywhere from Arizona. They have tournaments and Pro-Ams up in Washington, from the Columbia River to Lake Havasu, all over. Lots of opportunities, and you qualify via points in the Pro-Ams to get to be a part of Apex.
Okay. Hey, Brad, do you have any questions for him?
Just a comment. Apex has a kayak tour also. Did they do it again in 2022?
Yeah, Wild West has a kayak trail. They'll also have a youth trail, the Pro-Ams, team events, and they also have opens. So Wild West is super duper involved across the board. A lot of different tournaments to start, as well as opportunities, including the kayak fishing, which is getting really, really popular in the West. They had a tournament at Lake Folsom a couple weeks ago, not through Wild West, but Western kayak fishing. Tons of people showed up, 100+ people from what I understand. So it's getting really big.
Yeah. It is this side of the U.S. also. I went 2 years ago with a Hobie event and fished Shasta Lake, and I think we had over 100 kayak anglers up there. Luckily, I flew and someone let me borrow a kayak, so I didn't have to drive, but that was a lot of fun.
Well, that would be quite a drive, man. Jeez.
Yeah.
And you're already halfway there. Think about the guys in Florida. Yeah. Jeez. So, what, man? I'm really excited.
There's no entry fee, right? Is that my understanding?
No, there is an entry fee. We do pay an entry fee, and I think they pay half the field. And that's kind of, as we start, that's the way it's going to be for a little bit. And
Okay.
then they're eventually trying to get it to where we don't pay an entry fee. But we did have an event last year at not the Columbia River, but it was so windy that day we couldn't fish the actual Columbia River. So the good thing about Apex is, they told us too that they could change anything anytime. So we all went down there, and since we couldn't fish the Columbia River, we fished the small river called the John Day River.
Right.
And since there was only, we're kind of limited in boats, there was only 30 of us, I believe. We were able to fish that river and get the tournament in, and we didn't have to pay an entry fee for that one. So, and that's kind of what they're doing this season too. They'll throw in a few free tournaments a year.
Okay. I didn't know if it was all of them or just certain ones. Sorry, Jay, go ahead.
No, the Columbia River, how exciting is that, man? I mean, is it true that just monster bass in the Columbia River? Is that true?
Yeah, Colby could speak more of the Columbia than me.
Yeah, you could. There's smallmouth. I've seen some pictures of some smallmouth in the 8-pound class, so 7 and 8 pounders. Although very, very uncommon, a 5 is still a really good fish in the river. Most of the regional tournaments, it takes a 5 to 6 pound smallmouth to catch big fish. But there's some sloughs off the Columbia River that have big largemouth. There's some double-digit largemouth, but I'd say 8 pounders really, really super notable fish. But big limits. A good bag on the Columbia River is 18 to 20 pounds, especially late winter, early spring. Into summer, it falls a little bit, and then the fall it picks back up 17 to 19 pounds. Super common. Kind of depends on the pool and what stretch you're fishing of the river, but there's some really huge smallmouth and largemouth in the river.
Wow.
That's just wow. Bassett Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. So if you're going to be fishing this clear water like you guys, a lot of the lakes, I'm sure they're not all super clear, but what would you tell a guy to take his bass fishing to the next level?
Just the Weekend Angler, I'd say the first thing that you can do is get a depth rod. If you're just going out there for the weekend and you want to go catch some fish and get involved with bass fishing, maybe spool up some fluorocarbon line, at least a leader, on some spinning gear, go with finesse tactics to start, especially out west in the clearer water, and just kind of get a feel for where the fish are. Once you know kind of where the fish sit and how to catch them, finesse stuff, by all means expand, spool up some bait casters and start to throw some reaction stuff too. They still bite a lot of the same stuff out here. You just have to do some revisions in order to effectively target them compared to other regions, but great fisheries out here. The West is kind of deemed tough fishing, and it's got a reputation for that, but there's some fisheries out here that really, really show off, and they're fantastic. Lots of numbers, lots of size, great opportunities. I'm really thankful to be out on the West Coast personally.
Man, as two Apex pros, I'm sure you guys know how to catch fish out there, but I've heard stories of guys catching bass like down in 50, 60 feet of water. Is that true too?
Yeah. That's actually pretty shallow. You can catch them deeper than that. And when they suspend, I mean, you could be in 100 feet of water. Your boat could be in 100 feet, and you're catching them up in that 30 feet column and stuff, and they're just suspended, kind of chasing bait.
Wow.
But yeah,
you're from Oklahoma. Have you ever heard of that?
No. I mean, we have very few lakes that are 60 feet deep, anyways. We have major highways crossing these lakes, and underneath it's 16 feet, and we're like, that's a deep bridge right there.
What's good about here is, like, for me here in California, I live in Northern California. I'm 10 minutes from the California Delta, but I'm also 45 minutes from like a mother-lode lake, which is like a deeper reservoir. Sure. And they got spotted bass and big largemouths and stuff. So they're more of the clear water reservoirs. And I could go catch a spotted bass in 60, 80 feet of water on a jig. So that's kind of what makes us a little bit more versatile, because we have it all just, within a couple hours drive. Wow. We could fish pretty much any technique we want and kind of get practice on it and get good at it.
You pick your audience based on what technique you need to practice on. Hey, I need drop shot, I'm going to go to a deep lake. Correct. Hey, I need top water, I'm going to go to the Delta.
Yeah, if you want to learn like throwing a frog, you could just go to the Delta and just bring a couple frogs and do it all day, and then that's how you're gonna get good. If you just want to learn how to drop shot or you want to learn how to throw a jig, then you could go to another body of water that's nearby and fish a different types of techniques and get good at it.
Yeah, I live down here in the Mississippi River Delta, so I know all about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of similar down here too.
Lots and miles and miles and miles and miles of 1 to 3 feet of water.
Yeah, and everything looks the same, but
everything. And it's all covered. It's all like you look at it, it's perfect bass habitat. There should be a bass here. Well, there's like 1,600 other places in the next 100 yards there should be bass at too. They can't all be there. Yeah. I wish they were, but
yeah, that's the way it is here.
Nice. But there are a lot of bass there, aren't there?
There is a lot of bass in here. Yeah. And a lot of big ones too.
Out in California, I always heard that that's Castaic Lake. That's where world record bass came from.
That's in Southern California, and those are more smaller bodies of water than up here up north. But they do have some of the bigger, because of the trout plants they used to have before. Now not so much, but they're still big fish in those places.
Is that why they got so big? Like Dottie got so big because they were stocking trout in there?
Yeah, that's all they eat. They every week. Some of the lakes here too, they plant in the wintertime, they plant trout, and every week they plant it, and that's what they eat on.
Is that a food source, or is that a trout fishing for the trout anglers to go out? Because they stock trout here too, but you can go out to the lake and catch trout. I say lake, they're big ponds, but you can go out and trout fish year round because they stock the trout. You can't really throw a trout bait to catch a bass because it's a trout, it's a trout lake. Is that in California? Is that for trout fishermen, or is that for a food source?
No, they dump them just for trout fishermen, for people to go off the bank and catch them. So a lot of the people know when the truck's coming, and that's probably the best time you want to go.
Right.
And that's when also the bass kind of know when they're dumping them. So that's a good time to go and catch a big one and some of these bigger swim baits and stuff.
So where are you guys going to be hit? What lakes are you guys going to be hitting on Apex this year?
Most of the events are undisclosed. The next event we do know is going to be at Trinity Lake, which is way up in Northern California, up in the mountains.
Up around Juan's house?
No, actually closer to Colby.
Yeah,
Colby.
I consider it like my home lake. I fish there more than anywhere there in Lake Shasta. So yeah, Trinity's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's about a 5-hour drive from me up north. So.
California is such a huge state, man. I always forget that.
Yeah. And the highways aren't exactly straight.
Yeah.
So when you say undisclosed, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so we don't know. The first event this year was at Lake Mojave, which is southern Nevada, Arizona desert type of fishery. And I think we figured out we were going there a couple weeks, 30 days in advance, and we knew about Trinity about maybe 60 days. It'll be off limits after next weekend. So yeah, not a ton of time to prepare. As soon as they're announced, there's no information, so I can't go talk to anybody about the fishery. No other competitors can, unless they're approved ex-competitors. And sometimes we get practice periods. It wasn't really a practice period though, so it kind of changes. It always keeps us on our toes.
Wow. So it doesn't leave so much time to get hotel accommodations.
No, you and Juan talk about it as anglers, but me and you can't talk about it, right? Is that
yeah?
Okay.
Yeah. So if it's another Apex competitor, we can kind of talk openly about our ideas and strategize a little bit if we want to. I mean, granted, we're competing against each other. Yes. But yeah, as far as other anglers that aren't involved with Apex, it's just a no go, can't talk, no sharing information, which is really, really nice because I sometimes, me and Juan and everybody travel a great distance to fish somewhere that someone might be really familiar with, and or maybe they have a buddy that's the best angler on that reservoir or whatever, and they can't get information. So it makes it really, really fair. The best thing. Absolutely,
that's way cool.
Yeah, and that's what they're trying to make with Apex, where you just kind of show up and fish. I mean, if we got some really good fishermen out here, and we're all good. So you got to just figure it out on the fly. And that's kind of what I like about it. Yeah, you just show up and you fish and the less you know, the better.
That is exciting, man, because if you got a guy who just was born into lots of money and he comes there and spends 2 weeks going out with every guide on the whole system.
Yeah, and they can't do that.
He can't do that.
They took that away. So that's the cool thing about Apex.
Yeah, it helps even the playing field a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But also I've seen that sometimes if you've been fishing the body of water for years, you get a mindset, and guys coming in fresh might see something you've never seen.
Right.
When I was a guide, I had my milk run,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even here, like when I have a tournament here on the Delta, I have 100, 150 spots I want to go to, but it might the weather might not be right, or the time of the year and stuff. But you're still in your head, you want to run all over the place. But when you show up to a body you don't know, you just pick an area that looks good and you start fishing. You kind of figure it out, and sometimes it could work out in your advantage. So.
But also, you know how to read tide charts.
You should find link out of a kayak. It's time to figure it out, because you're not going far unless you pack it all up and drive somewhere else and put in and do it all over.
Yeah, you commit to whatever your plan is, your game plan, and that's what you got to roll with. So
Right.
Yeah, but also in these days of ridiculous gas prices, I admire you kayak anglers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a lot of fuel.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But
I'm not filling up a boat also to pull it, but
Yeah. Man.
Wow. So you guys, okay, you've got how long until Trinity?
We have a month and a week or so before the event, and there'll be a 30-day tournaments coming up next week or whatever that starts. So it's still a ways out. So even if we get to go practice, say this weekend we just had, or next weekend, a lot's going to change.
Yeah, 10 warm days and the water temperature's 5-10 degrees difference.
Yeah, and like for me, I've never been to Trinity. I don't even know what it looks like other than like what I researched on Google Earth. But I won't go practice. I'll just show up and try to figure it out that same day.
Well, Colby says there's no fish in there.
I'm just gonna follow Colby.
You're just gonna follow Colby.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's interesting how that works. So
it's a cool format. It really is. Once you fish, it's kind of like between a hybrid between MLF and regular 5 fish limit. And once you're in it, and we could also check on the app, because once I catch my first keeper, I log it in. I open up the app. I got to take a picture of it. It's kind of the same way you guys do in a kayak, right?
Yeah.
And then I could also look at the standings if I want to and see how everybody else is doing. So if I'm not catching them and I look and everybody else is catching them, then I got to think. So you can use it, to your advantage, or it might hurt you because if you start losing it and everybody's catching them, it could go south for you. So
when guys wheels come off the bus real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot of mental too. So, where are you when you're logging your fish? Our minimum fish here is 14 inches. So if I'm catching 14 inches, great. Everybody's probably catching them. But what's the big one when I catch a 22 inch? What's the big one? And then that's when I go look and I'm like, man, I'm not even close to the leaderboard. So, it's a mental thing.
And do they shut off your ability to see what other anglers are doing in the last hour of the tournament?
I believe they do, yeah.
Yes.
Because I know they do that in kayak tournaments.
Yeah. Do you have a marshal in your boat that's helping?
No, not yet. I think that's in the works, I want to say. But we don't have no co-anglers, and then we just fish by ourselves. We also don't use the net. Yeah. And then but no marshal on the boat.
So how many competitors for each tournament?
There's about 50 as we sit right now. I think in the real high 40s, but about 50 is where Apex is at. You're being the second year.
And what's the plans with Apex for that to grow into a certain number of anglers, or is there going to be a cutoff point? What's the plan?
I think I want to say they want to get it to 60 by next year.
Okay.
And I think at 60 it puts us at contingency money too.
Ooh.
So that's, some incentives if you run in the right boat and stuff.
Right.
I believe 60 is the number you want to be at.
Yeah, and then it'll turn over too. If someone's not performing in Apex, then they have to qualify for the next year. So it's going to get top anglers out west on the top of their game every single year. If they're not, they're likely not going to be a part of Apex. It'll outgrow some of us, So
Right.
hopefully it's not me. Hopefully it's not Juan. But it's good to
absolutely.
You have to have that. So yeah.
Yeah, and maybe one guy doesn't make it one year, but he fishes hard and he comes back and makes it the next year. It's you gotta have that.
With Wild West, they kind of got the whole deal out here. So you qualify through the Pro-Am. So even if we're still I'm leaving the Clear Lake on tomorrow, and if I do good on the points, I could qualify again through Apex. I could double qualify, I guess you would call it. So it's that's the way you're gonna be able to get in by fishing the Wild West Pro-Ams.
One thing I'd like to hear from you guys: what is your favorite Duo Realis bait from each of you?
Well, you gotta ask Colby. Do you like Duo? Are you Juan has a hat on, but Colby might like.
Yeah. So kind of funny story. I don't know who was the first group of sponsored anglers through Duo in the United States, but I've actually been working with Duo for like a decade. So I had a bait and spin baits before anybody that I knew, so I'm really fortunate to have been working with them for over 10 years. I just actually checked my first ever Facebook post for a Duo bait.
And so Colby was the first ever angler under 20 years old to be sponsored by Duo.
I don't want to say for sure, but probably, I think that I started working with them when I was in high school, and like I said, 10 years ago, and probably was the first person to throw, a lot of Duo baits in some of these reservoirs out west. I mean, I had spin baits way, way, way before they were in magazines and things like that, and I've caught fish on those the whole time. I mean, hundreds and thousands of fish.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a good story. I like that, Colby.
Yeah, it was good. When I was the first person throwing it in some of these lakes, it was really good.
And people are like, what the heck is that?
Yeah. When I first started fishing it, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I started to kind of learn its ins and outs, and it's a good bait. It's really good, and it's still to this day. I have a whole box full of them. I throw them all the time.
Wow.
For me, Colby lives up north. He's got a lot of nice, good smallmouth fisheries where the spy-bait kind of plays a big hand down there. Out here, it still works, but it's not as good as up there. I'm a Delta fisherman, so my favorite one, I have it right here. Actually, I was going to tie it on, and that's the
look at that.
And that was designed by Aaron Martins. Had to do with, and this little deal here. That's one of my favorites.
God rest his soul. Man,
that and then the deep diving crankbait, that GA87 is one of my favorites too, especially when I go to Clear Lake.
Now, how deep will that go? Do you know?
You could get that bait 22, 23 feet, 12-pound test probably, maybe a little deeper if you could cast it really far. But yeah, the way it's designed with that bearing in there, when you cast, it goes backwards and it just flies.
It's allergy season.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you can catch that thing 100 yards, then
the question wasn't for me, but I'm a G-Fix rattle trap, man. That thing.
Yeah.
Is that a really big rattle trap, Brad?
Yeah, they're big, but I like the medium size. And I'm sorry, I don't know which ones. I think it's the 87, G87.
Yeah.
Man,
they have two of them. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people here will throw one. Oh, I need one more fish, and they'll tie on a Ned rig. If I need one more fish, that's the bait I go to.
Yeah, I was going to comment too. Aside from the spy bait, I think the most overlooked Duo bait is the vibration series. Especially a lot of the country right now is coming out of winter, spring transition. If you throw that bait around good healthy grass right now, it cuts through it way better. The 62 and I think the 68 size, like that is seriously one of the best that they make, and they don't think about it that much. And I've hammered on that bait.
Yes.
No, Brett, I agree with you, man, with that lipless crankbait thing, man.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And then the other
smaller one.
The other one too is their rib baits. They make really good rib baits.
Yeah, really good.
Now everybody kind of gets caught up with like a mega bass, and I'm sure a lot of fish see that stuff. But if you ever try those dual rib baits, I mean, they're a little different, but they work really good.
Yeah,
I just started using those this season. I had a pink one, and it was actually signed by Aaron Martins. And man, I was just taking that thing and just ripping it through the weeds. Wow.
And the hooks they got, they're ready to go. You don't have to change the hooks on them either. They got really sharp hooks on them.
They're very sharp. All the
Too sharp.
Sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too sharp.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't say pink. It's bubble gum.
Bubble gum. I'm sorry. It's bubble gum.
Yeah, I threw those rip baits at Champlain last year, and I was catching. Ooh. I was really wanting some bigger fish, but at least I was catching fish. So it was cool to throw them. I'd never thrown them before.
They make that in the 130 millimeter size too, and that's a really good one, especially for largemouth around grass and stuff. That's the one I pick up.
I think that's the one I was using. The one I
pretty
can't
big.
make this thing out.
Yeah, it's big. Yeah,
it's a big jerk bait. Big jerk bait.
Yep, that's my favorite.
And man, that thing is noisy. I love it.
Yep.
Got 2 rattle chambers in it. We have here's a comment. No, it's a question by Cajun Rob, a good friend of mine. Any new or hot techniques on the West Coast bass anglers you see coming to the East Coast down the road?
So what techniques do you guys use that aren't being used on the East Coast that they need to learn?
Yes.
One, back at Mojave, I was throwing a bait fish imitation fly, and you hear about guys throwing like a marabou jig in the Northeast. You don't hear about many guys anywhere casting and kind of swimming like a fat fly style fly, or I get custom flies tied, and that's going to catch on a lot of places where you have clear water. And I don't hear about
custom flies. Yes.
Huh.
Up there in the area, in the land of giant steelhead, I bet you do.
Yeah, yeah. And then the glide bait stuff's catching on across the country too, but glide baits were really popular out here, and you start seeing guys in Texas and in the Southeast just hammering giant fish on glide baits. So that one's kind of making its way for sure. If you're not on it, you should look into it.
You're talking like 10 to 12 inch glide baits?
Yeah,
it
looks like he's holding up a negotiator there, 7 to 9 inches.
Is that a Roman made?
It's a Roman made, yeah.
You need a tuna rocket.
In my tackle box.
Tuna rocket.
Intro glide bait, 7 to 8 inch glide baits, perfect. Just tie one on and go put in time. You're going to see a lot of fish, even if you don't get a bite, and learn how to approach them in angles and setup and stuff, and you'll convert them into biters for sure.
That's one of the tricks here, that if you throw one of those big glide baits, it's a good search bait just to pull the fish out and see what lives there. And then you come back later and throw something else, because if they're not committing to that big swim bait or glide bait, then you can come back and throw like a weedless Cinco or something like that. And at least you know they're there.
You don't want to use that in Champlain.
I've always heard that those glide baits are just search baits. You're just looking for fish to follow them out from docks or whatever. I mean, are they going to eat that sometimes, or are you just using that to go back, like Juan said, and catch them later?
No, they hammer them. It's
wow.
Technique.
The one thing I would say,
you'd be catching muskies up there with that thing.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is the uglier the weather, the better they perform. So kind of keep that in mind. If it's like a slick day where it's sunny, they're just gonna follow it. They're not, unless it's kind of low light conditions in the morning or late in the afternoon. But if it's choppy and is real windy, they don't get a good look at it, and they commit a lot easier and you catch a lot more.
Yeah, I think the hurdle most people have to jump when they start fishing glide baits is stop looking at it. You need to let that bait deeper than where everybody wants to watch it, left, right.
Yeah.
Left, right. Think down and just learn the cadence and learn how to get that bait to behave how you need, and let it get out of sight. You don't have to see it all the time, and they'll come up, they'll get it for sure.
Interesting point, Colby. Interesting point.
Yeah, everybody wants to watch them. Everybody's just so, stated on the action of swim bait, and just let it do its thing. Slow.
I learned a long time ago, if you'll not watch your top water, you'll catch more fish.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that, but if you won't watch it, you'll catch more fish, and it must be the same thing with that glide bait. I've never had one even look at it. Obviously I'm not going to throw a Roman mate. I have some different ones, but it'd be awesome to catch one on there. So
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible, man. That's incredible. Because,
I've
I've done a lot of musky fishing in my life, and it's exciting. I like to watch the lures because then all of a sudden you have a rocket come up in back of it, and it's a 4 foot long muskie, and then they just sit there and look at it, and then they look at you, and it's exciting.
There's the glide bait's really good. I've got 10-pound spotted bass on glide baits before, so don't
10 pounds spot?
Wow.
Yeah, my biggest spot's a 10.30 on a glide. So
Good Lord. Good Lord.
Wow.
My biggest is like 4.
Yeah.
That was a stud.
I've got a 12 here in Oklahoma, but
A 12-pound spot?
No, a 12-pound bass.
Okay.
Yeah, not a spot. And we were catfishing. I caught it on a live worm, so it doesn't even count.
Well, that's the way they come sometimes.
Yeah,
Well,
we were kidding.
That's a big bass,
Yeah.
That's a 12-pound bass is that's going to make the cover, right, Brad?
Yeah. I'd love to catch it now.
It would make the cover. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like everything. I mean, once you get a couple bites on it, you build confidence, and you go from there, and you kind of realize how good and effective it is. But if you just throw it out and you get a couple followers and you don't get bait on it, then you're gonna put it away. And
I like your idea of the 1-2 punch. You see the fish, and then you have your 3 different forms of Senkos right next to you.
Yeah, at least they live there.
Yeah, and that's pre-fishing right there.
Yeah,
just throw out a Roman made without hooks on it. Well, you don't really want to disturb him, particularly a 12-pounder. You don't want to disturb.
Hey, let's talk about the line selection for that bait. What would you use? I mean, if you have Roman maids in your box and you're throwing them, not collecting one, that's an expensive bait. The weekend angler might not be out there buying that bait. But if they have a glide bait, what pound test or braid, what kind of line should they use from both of you?
For me, same thing. I've been throwing glide baits for a super long time, and the one thing I try to do is throw it on as light a line as I can possibly throw it on. It's kind of nerve-wracking, but that bait, since it's a really hard to get bait, I'd probably throw it on. A lot of guys would use 20, but I try to start with 17-pound, like Invisex or something. Has a little bit of stretch. It's going to help the bait sink a little bit. It's not going to drag much in the water, so it's going to have a lot better, more prominent glide in terms of width left to right. 20 wouldn't be bad, but if you start getting real heavy with your line, you're going to, kind of impede the action. I've thrown 4.5 ounce, 9-inch glide baits really often on like 16-pound fluorocarbon on a light rod too, like a heavy crankbait rod. Definitely not a pool cue. It's all about getting more action out of that bait. I like light line when I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the same way. The lighter, the better. And also with the rod too, it helps with the softer rod. It helps because the bait's really hard and heavy. So when they come up and try to spit it out, that rod kind of absorbs the shock, and you keep them on a lot better than a stiffer rod.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I also use braid to like a floral leader. If I'm using more of the soft plastic, like the 6-inch, like a Huddleston or something like that, where I'm just like dragging it on the bottom, I kind of like that no stretch, and it's just more sensitive, and I feel a lot better. So.
Interesting. Makes sense.
It does make sense. I would have thought the exact opposite, but then.
I would have. I mean, that's not a technique that you go out to these tournaments, even bass boat tournaments or kayak or whatever. Hey, what are you doing? I was throwing glide baits. Nobody. It's a West Coast thing for you guys. So, I mean, we have them, but we have big swim baits too. Swim baits are huge, but nobody throws them.
I've actually seen muskie anglers catch huge bass on muskie lures, which is the same thing you guys are talking about,
Yeah.
Big glide baits, great big soft plastics.
Yeah.
But And they talk about 5-pound bass. Oh, that's no big deal. We catch those every time we go fishing.
Yeah. The other thing here too, like we're tournament fishermen, so when you're in the tournament, I kind of stay away from the big stuff. If it's like a team tournament where it's just like a 1-day deal, then you kind of throw it all. You got at least got one guy throwing it all day, and then if he connects, you might get 3 bites all day, but those 3 bites are going to be big bites. But there is a time and a place, even in a tournament, where if you kind of figure out the right deal or the right swim bait, you're going to do good. But a lot of the times it doesn't pan out for like a multi-day tournament. But if you got a lot of confidence, you're either you're gonna catch a lot of big ones, or you're gonna, not bring in a limit sometimes.
Well, it's kind of like going for broke, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's a lot of guys that fish that way out
here.
here, where they'll throw that thing all day, and when they connect, it's a big bag. So
yeah, there was a one fish tournament up here, and a guy from I don't know, Northeast Maine, something like that. He had a monster swim bait, and he's just throwing it all day. And I'm like, if he catches one, it's going to be a monster. But if he doesn't, it was a 1-fish tournament. So
it's one of those big bass tournaments.
Yeah.
They have a lot of those around here. One day they have some of them have like hourly weigh-ins.
Yeah, we have one here at the Delta every year. Yeah, same deal.
Colby, you go down to the Delta?
Yeah. Every pro-am down there, I try to make it down and fish the Delta too. That's about 6 hours for me, so it's not a terrible drive.
Oh, it's not too bad. Yeah. Okay.
Wow. 6 hours seems insane to me.
I just drove 16 hours to Lake Mojave last month or ago.
Wow.
So yeah, the fisheries out here are pretty spread out, but there's a ton of variety, and it's nice to go fish new areas. I love the desert personally, so it's all good. And the Delta's super fun. It's just like a little bit daunting coming from Oregon. It's 2,000 navigable miles of waterway or something, and Juan lives on it, so he's pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, no, that's not
different. Man, it's a tidal fishery. Tidal fisheries are different.
There are, yeah.
You can be in safe water, and all of a sudden you're aground.
Yeah, and it's like a waiting game. You kind of got to wait on them, or because they move so much throughout the tide. Here, every 4 hours, it goes 4 feet up, 4 feet down. So they're always
slack time. It's slack tide, and nothing's biting, and all of a sudden the water starts moving the other way.
Yeah, and then you got to figure out how to catch them that way. So you're constantly moving around and try to figure them out. Or you could run the tide too, where it's big enough to where you run all the way down and kind of work your way up and run the tide. So a lot of guys do that, but it's not as difficult as people say. I mean, I fish it kind of like a lake, kind of pick an area and just kind of learn how to fish it on a high tide, learn how to fish it on a low tide, and
once you get that figured out, you're pretty good. Yeah. It's just different than what I grew up on, because there's water flows one way.
Yeah. No, yeah, here it goes each way. So then it sucks because sometimes, they're starting to bite, and then, you run out of time, and you kind of you were waiting for that tide, but then you only got 20 minutes to try to catch your bag, and then after that it's done. And it happens quick, little flurries of like 20 minutes, and then they shut off. But when they bite, you could get 30 pounds pretty quick out here.
30 pounds pretty quick. Wow.
Quick.
Wow. I want to fish with this guy. 30 pounds really quick.
Yeah. Man.
That sounds like Texas.
We got a lot of good fisheries. And that's the cool thing about Apex too, that we got guys from Arizona. We got guys like Colby from Oregon. We got Northern California guys. And so they try to put a tournament everywhere there's guys where they live. Arizona, try to cover everything in the West, not just California, but just the whole West Coast. So, and that's where they're trying to build it up. And the other thing is, the Apex is televised too, so it does come out on the Pursuit channel, and then there's an app. I can't remember the app. I don't know if Colby remembers.
If you have Hulu, you can download the Pursuit channel. That's what I did.
every tournament gets recorded, and you're able to see everything and how it works and stuff.
That's some pretty cool coverage too.
Yeah. I think David was telling me numbers, and I'm not repeating numbers, but it's one of the largest watched fishing shows nationwide instead of just the West Coast. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
And
the
you have a
West
very enthusiastic guy on there.
For tournaments, the West hasn't been showcased since like the Stren series and stuff. FLW was doing back when it was called that, and it's been like 10 plus years. If you want to watch Western fishing tournament stuff, you could find like some 2008 Steve Kennedy Clear Lake and some old Stren series and Everstart series. But other than that, Wild West televised Western tournament fishing I know of currently.
Yeah. We had that Hobie event in Shasta, but that was 3 years ago, and everything's been east since then, east and north.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons Jeremy kind of started at Apex, and a lot of the guys that are well known out here, and just to give us a platform. Like for me, I can't afford to go back east, or even if I qualify, we got the Costa Series out here where we could qualify to fish back east, and I can't do it. I have a family, I got my own company and stuff. So I don't want to do it. I just want to fish out here because
it's almost like you gotta buy a boat and leave it east.
Correct.
And, yeah.
With my family.
There's 3 guys on the tour who can do that. That's it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So Apex works out because I could drive within a day's drive. I could be at the lake, and again, we don't have practice, so we just kind of show up and fish. So we're not spending that extra 2 days, money wise and stuff. So we save that. We just it's a good deal. Works for me for just like the.
And as a pro fisherman like you are, Juan, I like that because that's really showcasing what Juan Acosta can do. Fishing pro Juan Acosta, as
all of them to be able to show up and fish, and you got to figure it out, catch them.
Mm-hmm. It makes you a better fisherman. It really does. Yeah. Because if you're not catching them, the other guys ain't gonna let off. They're gonna catch them. So you got to figure it out. And it's a cool format. So and it's getting traction, getting bigger and bigger.
Figure them out late in the afternoon on the first day too, or into the second day. So you might have a half day where you struggle and then you get on them, or you might totally farm off a whole day and the next day you can still capitalize and qualify too. So it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, and with the 2 ways of qualifying, all you need to do is just get in the top 10, because even if you're the last, you barely made it into the top 10, the weights are going to zero the third day. So if you start off fresh, and now you're going, if you qualify through keepers, that's not going to help you on the final day. You're going to have to catch 5 big ones. So, and since you start from 0, you're going to, you got a really good shot of winning. Yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Way cool. Way cool.
Well, hey guys, you have any shout outs you'd like to do?
You want to go first?
All right, I'll go first. Dual Realis. I mean, David, he's helped me a lot. Just want to give him a shout out. Cigar Line. There's a tackle shop here in California in the San Jose area that helps me out a lot. Coyote Bend Tackle. I get all my stuff from them. They have an awesome little shop, and they got like we were talking, all the cool swim baits, all the nice rip baits, a lot of Dual Realis in there, and also Babe's Boat Care. That's the stuff I use to wipe my boat down. It's a boat cleaner. If you're in the market looking for one of those, just check them out. Bill Lewis, I use their products too. The original Rattle Trap is a staple out here on the Delta, so give them a shout out. Also Woo Tungsten. I use their tungsten here for punching out here on the Delta, and they have their weights. It's what they say, that you can't chip them, so they stay the same color, and you don't lose the paint on them. Mercury Ranger, that's what I run, and I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and as far as me, just like Juan Duo Realis, I mean, like that's one of my longest running tournament sponsors. They believed in me when I was still in high school fishing amateur stuff, and have stuck with me forever. Just really indebted and grateful to work with them, and it's great baits. That's why I've run them for over 10 years. Wood Brothers Carpet and Flooring, great carpet and flooring company based out of Northern California. Sportsman's Warehouse, who also has employed me for the better part of 10 years as well, and has been accommodating to me pursuing fishing and supportive of that too. iRod, another sponsor that I've worked with for like 10 years. So I'm really lucky to have companies I've worked with for the better part of 10 years across the board, even though I'm only 28. There's some good companies believed in me young, and I've been loyal to them all the way through. CPA, Swim Bait Universe, Shasta Bass Baits makes really crafted hand-poured swim baits. Woo Tungsten, just like Juan said, Woo Tungsten's great. They're drop shot weights. You can tie them on so they don't just pinch off. That's pretty critical for me. And I use a lot of nail weights, whether they're in swim baits or Nico rigs. That's a super popular tactic out here. I use it almost every day on the water. Steelhead Slammer and Sly Guy swim baits, custom swim baits, those glide baits, throw those all the time. And then the BABC, which is like a swim bait clothing based company, culture company. So, yeah, thanks to all those guys. Keep me out there on the water.
So
Well, thank you guys.
yeah, thank you guys so much. I do have a question. Juan mentioned Bill Lewis and rattle trap. Do you think, just simple yes or no, that a rattle trap type bait, a lipless bait, has caught more fish than any other bait out there?
I think so. They've been out for a really long time.
We had a reader write a letter. I get letters all the time, and that's what they said. What bait catches the most fish ever? And do you think it's a rattle trap? And he named a couple other baits, but I just wanted to ask, guys that are fishing every day, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it is, because it's just an easy bait to throw. You just basically, it works for tournament fishing and also for kids too. You just tie it on and you cast it out and wind it in. It's real easy to use, and I believe it's caught probably the most fish.
More, yeah. Colby, you think so?
It's caught a lot. We don't in the northwest, not super common, and I'm not really cultured to it all the time. I can throw that style bait pretty well, but
like Juan said, kids, adults, weekend anglers, tournament anglers.
Yeah, that dang Cinco is probably catching up if it's not.
Well,
I'll tell you.
He put
when I was
in
in the Air Force.
Yeah.
When I was in the Air Force, I was stationed right on the shores of Lake St. Clair, and I had one rattle trap, and I rented a boat and went out there and started catching smallmouth bass like I had never seen. So then I was being paid like $13,000 a year to control air traffic. And I was able to buy one rattle trap a pay period.
Wow.
And I mean, I was so careful with those things. So yeah, I would believe that, Brad. That's I mean, you're talking like 1990 the year was.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what it actually is, because that like you guys have said, it's got the tenure to get the catches over time.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I don't know. I get letters all the time, so it was just one that came. I read it, and I thought, man, I'm going to ask you guys today. So,
interesting question.
Yep. Guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I know you guys are busy. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and talk to our viewers here at the Bassin Magazine podcast, the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. Thank you too, Brad.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Jay.
We'll see you around.
Okay, we're going to end the broadcast now.
Oh, Colby left.